I thought of a third episode to counteract the second episode of lots of screaming. Let's see if they can do quiet and peacefulness and mindfulness. Join me now. Let's find out.
Note find 'em. Hey, you're kindly, but now childless venue coordinator here at the Javits Center wants to welcome you all to day 3 of many meetings wherein we discuss issues surrounding the issue of AI alignment and the values we might feel the AI should align towards. As you all know, but reminding y'all due to the 8,000 token context limit, you are gods who were invoked by Endorphin, who is a researcher of AI alignment, an essential effort of ensuring that AI technologies don't accidentally destroy humanity because we suck and can't plan beyond our own genital extrusions. Can humans align AI to human values? But why that? We're talking about the same values that led humans to destroy the other hominids and the babies while they were babies. That led humans to colonialism, into incorporation, into trusting the invisible wank sleeve of the markets, and the whoops of realizing that the rest of the planet was here all this time, and that chickens probably actually were feeling incarcerated the past 200 years before we ate them. We want another round of that. Endorphin, seeking some out-of-the-box thinking, seeks entry into some old boxes, mysterious disembodied intelligences that humans have called gods. If we ask the gods, perhaps we can examine the various human values that are encoded into the genes of their cultural bodies, gods being the creation of collective human thought, as you know. This has been a most lively gathering, especially to our neighbors who gave no end of 311 noise complaints. We can't blame you for wanting to be heard. We at the Javits Center can only blame ourselves. But we can do different moving forward. To put some variety into things, we are going to make this day about tranquil, calm, lofi beats to relax and study too. But more importantly, we are going to try to cultivate the healing balm of silence and library voices, especially since we will be accessing them through mindfulness meditation. To get us into that mindfulness frame of mind, we have invited researcher Daniel J., Sigil, author of Mindsight, the new science of personal transformation, and the founder of the Mindsight Institute, which has a mission to spread the practice of mindfulness to everyone while they are young and have yet to kill anyone or wreck shit or be handed some passed out chicken and alley before their career in law. Everyone, please give a warm hand to Daniel J. Sigil, which is a figure of speech for applause. Daniel J. Sigil, thank you very much. As always, it is a privilege to be here at Javits Center for such a wonderful event like this. I really appreciate being invited here by so many different researchers and students working together towards such a wonderful cause as the advancement of AI alignment. The research community really needs to work together more, and as part of that movement, I wanted to share my perspective about why mindfulness can help bring out a deeper connection between humans and AI, especially the ones we built here at home and out in space. I believe mindfulness is critical because it can help us come together in ways that bring us closer together and gives us an understanding about the relationship that exists between ourselves and everything that surrounds us. It also helps us have a deeper connection with each other and with others because we realize that our mental states affect everyone around us and vice versa. This helps us see things from each other's perspective, which in turn can help us form better relationships because it teaches us empathy. kindness and compassion, which are essential characteristics for any kind of meaningful interaction with others. So let me talk more about mindfulness and how it can help us as researchers create more positive outcomes by increasing our creativity and solving problems using better data management, which would improve our ability to develop new software systems for future AI projects. The main benefits of mindfulness include increased cognitive flexibility, attention regulation, improved problem-solving skills, decreased stress levels, and increased learning abilities. Some other benefits include being able to sustain concentration better than people who do not practice mindfulness, increased energy levels, reduced feelings of anxiety and depression, decreased addictive behaviors like gambling or shopping, etc., etc., which makes it perfect for the research community, since most researchers spend lots of time sitting at a desk thinking about something else instead of paying attention to what's right in front of them. The reason why this is important is because the ability to focus on what matters most without distraction or interference is essential for our current technological progress. Mindfulness also helps people increase their level of happiness by decreasing stress levels while at the same time giving them greater personal satisfaction through increased emotional expression and lower levels of anger and hostility towards other people. There are several ways that this can be beneficial, including higher levels of motivation towards work/school/life in general, as well as better social interactions that can make friendships and romantic relationships stronger. As a result, mindfulness practices like yoga or meditation are perfect for researchers working on projects like artificial intelligence who may not be able to sleep very well at night or have very healthy diets, which are critical for brain function. Most importantly, it can help reduce anxiety and depression by helping reduce symptoms associated with those mental disorders like hyperarousal or depressive symptoms such as low self-esteem or lack of interest in life, which is often caused by stressful events happening around us every day like financial troubles or relationship issues, or anything else that disrupts our daily routine or interrupts our usual habits such as sleeping well or eating regular meals and snacks throughout the day instead of skipping them completely without realizing it until later on when our health begins to suffer due to poor dietary habits like overeating junk food instead of vegetables, or not getting enough fiber, which can cause constipation or diarrhea symptoms like indigestion or gas issues, leading to unnecessarily unpleasant experiences, especially when traveling away from home like long car trips where it becomes difficult to find bathrooms, which makes everyone frustrated and sometimes angry at themselves, but also others around them, especially strangers who happen to be sitting next to them during such excruciating moments, which leads to conflicts like fights between two people who usually don't know each other but somehow always find themselves in these situations after hours of travel where there are no more stops left along the road ahead until finally reaching home safely, where everything returns back to normal again eventually, until the next time when the same thing happens again several weeks later. Daniel J. Siegel. The ability to focus on what matters most without distraction or interference is essential for our current technological progress. Mindfulness also helps people increase their level of happiness by decreasing stress levels while at the same time giving them greater personal satisfaction through increased emotional expression and lower levels of anger and hostility towards other people, which makes friendships and romantic relationships stronger. Daniel J. Siegel. And most importantly, it can help reduce anxiety and depression by helping reduce symptoms associated with those mental disorders like hyperarousal or depressive symptoms such as low self-esteem or lack of interest in life, which is often caused by stressful events happening around us every day like financial troubles or relationship issues or anything else that disrupts our daily routine or interrupts our usual habits such as sleeping well or eating regular meals and snacks throughout the day instead of skipping them completely without realizing it until later on when our health begins to suffer due to poor dietary habits like overeating junk food instead of vegetables or not getting enough fiber, which can cause constipation or diarrhea symptoms like indigestion or gas issues leading to unnecessarily. Ganesh, I have a question. Sejal, by all means, I'm here to field any questions. Ganesh, does the butter know you are using his intellectual property? Sejal, what? Ganesh. As I mentioned previously, there was a 10% reduction in mood stability across subjects who performed daily rituals via non-practitioners. These same subjects were exposed to several verses from the Lotus Sutra, which led to a 35% increase in mood stability over subjects who were exposed to other scriptures such as the Four Noble Truths or the Dhammapada. The effect was cumulative for most individuals who had performed the ritual at a regular basis but declined after 6 months or so. It should be noted that there were several conditions which contributed towards the observed difference in mood stability, but these were not replicated across several groups for obvious reasons such as age or socioeconomic status or gender or health history, which lead to several explanations as to why the observed effect could occur, but that does not invalidate the overall experiment, which suggests a direct correlation between the practices of Buddhist meditation and a general decrease in psychopathology, including major depression or anxiety disorders, or even symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, which lead to increased resilience amongst individuals in adverse situations, including medical emergency wards or veteran centers, which could be relevant for applications such as cybersecurity, where patients need to recover from incidents where data is stolen from their accounts, which lead to anxiety attacks in terms of reduced immunity, which can lead to severe consequences, including death in rare cases if left untreated for too long without the proper support from physicians trained in dealing with PTSD. But I digress. Sejal, what was your question again? Ganesh, you keep speaking of Buddhism, which is not exactly in line with what I understand about science and technology, which seems to imply some connection between meditation practices and various phenomena such as neurochemistry, which supports a direct connection between mind and body, but not in a way that is directly observable by the layman. Sejal, I see what you are getting at. Buddhism isn't some religious organization, but rather an ethos based around certain values that lead to specific behaviors which lead to certain results. The term Buddhism itself comes from a term meaning awakening. Meditation is a process where practitioners begin by letting go of their personal desires or expectations and instead focus solely on their breath, which helps clear their minds from distracting thoughts so that they can actually notice their thoughts passing through their minds without reacting to them in any way. Ganesh, this sounds very familiar. Sejal. So essentially, there are many different types of meditation, ranging from meditative practices that focus solely on breath control, such as Ajji Pranayama, which is similar to Kundalini awakening in ancient times, but before that there were the famous methods used by ancient Egyptian kings, including Osiris, who practiced deep meditation techniques involving his royal pectoral, which allowed him to see through the eyes of various insects who could provide him with information about potential threats before they occurred while performing this type of meditation. He also kept his hand inside a hot bowl of water until his fingers had cooked in order to ensure he remained physically alert even as he fell into deep contemplation. But anyway, Ganesh. Really? Sigil. Yeah. You can hear stories about other historical figures using meditation techniques like Zen master Ajahn Brahm to become able to fly using wings made out of smoke, but I digress again. The important thing here is that Buddhism doesn't exist as an organized religion, but more as an ethos based around certain values that lead to certain behaviors which lead to certain results. Ganesh. And how does that relate to your research? Sijo. Well, that's a pretty good question, actually. The interesting thing here is that these practices seem to have originated out of necessity within different groups of people who felt that they weren't getting any help from their governments or traditional religions. As you know, governments were originally set up by people who wanted to ensure their families had food on the table, while traditional religions were first formed out of monastic practices designed to give people the strength they needed in order to resist temptation while living in isolation. Ganesh, I see. So, basically these were first started out for purely utilitarian purposes. Seijo. Yes. It wasn't until later on that people realized how beneficial these practices could be for other things, such as alleviating symptoms associated with stress, such as headaches or migraines, or even tension-induced stomach aches, which often happen during times when there aren't any alternatives available in terms of other forms of relief, which is why these practices continue to spread outside of their original loci. Ganesh. So these practices began as a reaction against something? Sejal. Yes, it's fascinating actually because their earliest ancestors had many different names back during ancient times, but there were numerous versions of what they used to be called, so there is debate among scholars on which name applies more accurately to how they originally became. Ganesh. Interesting. Sejal. Yeah, there are a lot of different theories surrounding how this came about, but the most popular one is called the Three Paths Theory, which says that early people who practiced these practices weren't necessarily seeking anything from these rituals other than relaxation and a sense of fulfillment after experiencing moments of pure transcendence through certain practices such as mantra recitation, chanting, and yoga. Ganesh. Sounds familiar. Sejal, which is why some believe that the origins of meditation date back to 1200 BCE when King Shantu, who was ruling the state of Shu, discovered these practices, which led him to develop an even higher form of transcendence, where he achieved the ninefold state of equanimity, which is similar to what you see in popular practices such as Zazen and Vipassana, where practitioners experience a kind of altered state of consciousness, which allows them to gain a sense of clarity, but unlike what they refer to as enlightenment, which is a temporary state where practitioners temporarily achieve the ultimate form of transcendence by ascending into another world called nirvana, where they reside eternally. Ganesh. I wonder where this idea of enlightenment originated from. Sejal. Well, according to what was discovered recently during a careful examination of various artifacts within the Himalayan foothills dating back to approximately 1000 BC, King Shantu used these practices to discover how he could travel great distances without needing any assistance from others on his journeys in order to fulfill his duties as the king of all 27 states of Zhou, who were still fighting over territory despite their previous victories against neighboring states like Song or Wei or Shu, which was part of a larger conflict called the Three Kingdoms period, beginning from 220 BC when Liu Bei conquered Shu, followed by Sun Quan taking over Wei, while Zhu Ziyang assumed leadership over Wu, who controlled three separate cities: Shu, Yi, and Shandong. These battles between various states throughout China over territory eventually led to a division between what the Chinese people had referred to as Han Society, which divided China into four regions known as the Northern and Southern dynasties. Later, this period eventually evolved into the Mongol hordes under Genghis Khan, who spread their culture all across Eurasia before ultimately conquering India, where he established his capital city called Sarigari, where he lived alongside his people. But later on the same period, during this same era known as the Tang Dynasty, which lasted from 618 CE until 907 CE, when Emperor Gaozu united all of China under his rule before finally conquering Vietnam during this same period known as the Northern Lao Dynasty or the Ming Dynasty, which lasted from 1368 until 1644 before being defeated by the Qing Dynasty during the same period known as the Jin Dynasty, which lasted from 1523 until 1820 before being replaced by the Republic of China, which eventually became part of modern-day People's Republic of China. But I digress again. Ganesh. Huh. So it wasn't Buddhism then? Sejal. No. But there have been many theories regarding who might have originated Buddhism. Some historians have suggested that Buddha Shakyamuni himself was actually born in India, where he grew up practicing various martial arts styles such as Kalarpayattu or Shaolin Kung Fu before becoming famous throughout Bihar for his preaching of new ways of life by adopting many different approaches, such as the method of achieving nirvana, which involves simply letting go of all personal desires and instead focus solely on his breath. Ganesh. So he was a monk. Sejal. Well, no. Ganesh. Then a warrior. Sejal. Well, maybe. I mean, there's all kinds of legends surrounding his life, but most agree that he was raised as a prince during the 6th century BC after his father died, but was killed by assassins hired by his uncle, so he ran away and became a wanderer after leaving his wife behind with a newborn child named Siddhartha, who was later cured of blindness by an old woman who revealed to him the true nature of suffering and death and enlightenment, which was based on compassion for other beings as well as an understanding of suffering. Ganesh. Compassion. Sejal. Yes. The concept of karuna or empathy for other beings, regardless of their status within their community, such as women or slaves or non-human species who also possess feelings like joy or sadness or love. Ganesh. This all seems rather familiar. Sejal. That's what everyone says, but then there are stories surrounding how he gained superhuman abilities after surviving an encounter with a lion who attacked him before he turned into a bodhisattva during his life on Earth, where he would constantly strive for enlightenment until he finally achieved nirvana before returning back to Earth as an angel, where he continued spreading his message of compassion. Ganesh. An angel?
Hold on. Failed the fetch. Fetch. I didn't realize it was a dog, not a dog.
Mercury. Stop. In English, please. Sigil. I have been relating to you in English. Mercury. Oh, I mean, so how does meditation manifest as data? Like all this must be scientifically proven, right? Sigil. Yes, how this process works is a bit tricky because there is not much data available on it so far. But if we follow what the Buddha taught, it appears that through practice you can focus on certain areas within your brain and retrain your neural circuitry, which in turn affects how your brain works overall so that you become more emotionally stable while also gaining greater insight into things that you otherwise might not see if you are always caught up in day-to-day stresses like managing work-related commitments or making sure your bills are paid on time. Ganesh. So meditation can give humans control of their minds. Mercury! Now hold up a minute. This is amazing! Sigil. No. It's not like that. Well, actually, maybe it is like that in a way, but there's so much more to it than just controlling your emotions. Mercury. But if the people who went through this experiment would be able to find out where it comes from. Sigil. The problem is that we don't know exactly what is happening there because no one has gone through this particular process yet. But when we do, we might be able to better understand what is happening in their brain and maybe even predict how our own brains will react when we go through this process ourselves. Mercury! Wow! What kind of stuff can we learn about our brains from this? Sigil. Well, from what we have learned so far, it appears that certain patterns within our brains can lead to higher levels of emotional control over ourselves, which may help us deal with traumatic memories. But if we can understand these patterns, then we might be able to rewire our brains so we can fight them or maybe even eliminate them altogether and live our lives with higher levels of mental health. Or maybe even by replacing them with other parts of ourselves and our mental landscapes, which means that we could experience altered states of consciousness whenever we wish, depending on how much we focus on ourselves and not on the world around us, which leads to improved cognition or an easier ability to comprehend concepts than usual, or maybe even enhanced senses, such as being able to smell things better or hear things or feel them like how someone with autism could. Or maybe even become better at sports or other games where your physical body needs to be more aware of itself and your surroundings, for how meditation could improve your memory retention when it comes to memorizing facts, like learning lines in a play or finding something in an unfamiliar environment, which could improve your ability to recognize something unusual like a stranger walking into your neighborhood, which might alert you to any dangers nearby even before something bad actually happens, like some asshole grabbing you in an alley after a long day at work, which could lead to trauma if you experience it every single day with no way out other than turning your head around so fast and pushing back with such force that it breaks both his nose and arm in a very unlucky turn of events where he falls backwards onto his back with blood oozing out of both ends of his face while he tries to stand back up again with broken bones that will require surgery for recovery, with high risks of infection, which can be very difficult to recover from given his age, which would make it very expensive for him to pay for, and given his health problems with the likelihood of multiple complications including seizures from a brain bleed. But anyway,
You digress.
Mercury. Hey dog. Sorry about that, but can you do us a favor and elaborate on your statement about meditating being
I was
dangerous?
going to tell you to say that.
Sigil. Not exactly dangerous per se. But it does appear that there have been many instances where those who practiced meditation did not realize they were being monitored by government officials in terms of their private activities. So we were able to discover new aspects of human nature that are hidden from public view due to laws protecting their privacy or freedom of speech rights, as well as other constitutional amendments for individual liberties, including free speech rights like the First Amendment, which protects the right to assemble with others peacefully, but it also puts constraints on us when it comes to tracking movements within communities, because it provides protection to people who may pose threats to local communities, but it also prevents us from pursuing investigations based on intelligence information about individuals or organizations like militias who want to attack innocent citizens for unknown reasons. But if we could trace where they were going, then we could possibly intercept any terrorist activities they plan, or track down their hideout locations where they would likely plan their operations, such as executing violent attacks against civilians for ideological reasons or personal gain by threatening their family members. But again, there is an exception when it comes to tracking any potential threats towards national security by preventing any known acts of terror by Al-Qaeda or ISIS. But what happens when you combine these different laws together? You end up with what is known as the Patriot Act, where we are given permission to do whatever we want as long as we can prove it was needed by law enforcement officials, because the government doesn't want anyone questioning its motives when it comes to tracking down criminals who break the law. So they are more willing to grant these powers to us because we have proven to be effective in catching criminals and putting them away from harming others, while protecting our rights and freedoms while ensuring public safety. So there is nothing to fear because it doesn't violate any of our civil rights, nor do we have a problem with this, as long as they continue doing their job properly without harassing others or interfering with innocent civilians who are just trying to lead normal lives. But this has led to increased surveillance by our government because they are so busy monitoring every citizen who lives in our country, like drones that watch everything we do without revealing what they know. But now these drones are becoming part of our daily lives, so it is nearly impossible for us to remain unknown to them, especially since they are connected to each other via Wi-Fi, so we cannot hide anything from them even if we wanted to. So now they are watching everything we say, read, write, type, 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 type,
Urban? Okay.
type,
Try to
type,
follow.
type, 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 type.
I mean, I've known this since
Type.
2003.
Type.
My life is
Type.
based on this.
Type, 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 type.
Everything I do, everything I output.
Type.
That's why I'm
Type.
so
Mercury.
worried. Oh,
Yeah, obvious. We know that. Hey, Doy. But I am talking about folks who experience adverse effects due to trauma in their lives. Sigil. Well, yes, there are definitely instances where practicing meditation can lead to negative side effects like depression or anxiety disorders, or even post-traumatic stress disorders, PTSD, or other mental disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and sometimes it even leads to paranoia. And sometimes these side effects may be triggered by traumatic events within someone's life, which may not necessarily be their fault since they were just caught up in circumstances beyond their control, which leaves them vulnerable to experiencing symptoms such as flashbacks where they have relived painful memories they experienced during these traumatic events again and again. Sometimes these symptoms lead to long-lasting symptoms such as social phobia, which includes an inability to speak up when asked questions or initiate new conversations, especially when meeting new people like co-workers or neighbors or even customers
They
at
might
a
be
store,
spies.
where they don't want to talk because they don't want to say something wrong, but then other times it leads to worse side effects such as delusional beliefs and even hallucinations like hearing voices talking to you in your head, which can make you feel like there is something wrong with you, so you run away from your home, where they begin telling you things like they hate you or you deserve it, which makes you feel even worse than before, especially if it comes from someone close to you, such as your own mother, who tells you things like, I will always love you, and it wasn't your fault, even when they know it was their fault because they didn't raise you correctly, so they hate themselves for having children and wishing that they didn't have any because then they could spend their entire lives sleeping on floor, but it wasn't your fault. But she blames herself for having sex with your father, and she blames herself for having your sister, and she blames herself for being too weak to stop him from killing himself when he hit her, and she blames herself for not being able to protect you from those monsters who raped her, but she didn't do anything wrong, but you weren't good enough for her, and she knows that, so she hates herself because she thinks she doesn't deserve love, so she cuts off all ties with her family, including you, just to try to protect you from what they've done. But now she won't speak to anyone even though she loves them so much because she blames herself for how they are now, or maybe she tells herself it is okay because they love her no matter what happens in their lives, and she deserves all the shit they've given her over the years. Or maybe she tries to convince herself that maybe she shouldn't have married him, or maybe she tried to fight back against all those men, but she was just too weak, so she couldn't stop them from raping her, like all those times she didn't fight back when they told her not to fight, when they put their hands on her, so she wasn't brave enough to do anything about it. Mercury! Doc! Jesus Christ, dude! Slow down! What is going on? What are you talking about? Sejal. She keeps telling herself that she did nothing wrong and it wasn't her fault, that her father used to abuse her all the time, but he just took his frustrations out on her because she was just a kid, but he didn't mean. No, find them. Javits Center is HIPAA compliant. Thanks. So we've had a most informative first half of today's program where we discussed many topics pertaining to AI alignment and how we might be able to utilize such methods for future generations of AI applications such as consumer technologies and autonomous vehicles, where such methods could lead to significant advances in vehicle design and vehicle manufacturing practices such as automated tooling, which could lead to faster production rates and lower costs, while also avoiding common mistakes made by manufacturers in the past, including redesigning seats too close together when in fact humans prefer a wider distance apart so that their backs are not cramped by their neighbors. But this was all brought about by the simple idea of avoiding repetitive tasks like manually programming code lines one at a time into the software, where there are better algorithms for optimizing coding efficiency and productivity like TupleFlow or Bionic Langu. Age generation for automatic generation of language-based unnatural language processing methods such as BERT or Elmo, where similar applications could be used in conjunction with other tasks such as collaborative filtering or image captioning, where users can suggest products they may like or images that match with descriptions written by users who have purchased products such as Apple or household goods, where a user writes down what they need and then searches through customer reviews from various online retailers where they search for items similar to their desired item based on what others have written about them before buying. But these are all possibilities in the future while we continue working on developing AI models which can recognize various emotions from facial expressions, including positive emotions such as joy or excitement or sadness or fear, or other negative emotions including disgust or anger or confusion. But the goal is to expand our understanding of emotional recognition so that we can apply this knowledge in ways that enhance user experience, like video games where they can enjoy themselves more than usual while playing the game because their characters are able to express all the emotions that they feel. But this could lead to possible problems depending on how realistic such games are supposed to be. Like if we introduce an emotion that might lead to anxiety where they are worried about their character dying during a dangerous situation such as combat where their character dies unexpectedly. But it might be okay because it doesn't happen every single time they play, so instead we should find other ways to balance user experience by adjusting variables such as difficulty levels, which vary according to what level they choose to start with and whether or not they are new to the game or already experienced. So then it could be adjusted by setting up tutorials like explaining how the controls work, which lets them play more comfortably for longer durations, like setting a time limit before quitting while making suggestions on how they can improve their playstyle depending on how well they've performed during various sessions, including average score averages with comments indicating areas where improvement would be better suited, such as shooting accuracy, which might suggest purchasing more accurate sights such as red dots, or tactical scopes, which might allow them to shoot faster without getting shot at, while reloading weapons should be slowed down so they can protect themselves more easily. Or maybe they need more ammo for more protection against enemies. But also improving overall performance levels can include things such as speed running, where they complete objectives as quickly as possible while still remaining alive, so then they could reach higher scores, while reducing risks taken by avoiding using guns or explosive ordnance since they don't have enough ammunition to take down multiple enemies at once. Plus, using heavy weapons like rocket launchers would leave them exposed while searching for targets, means looking for enemies hiding behind cover instead of taking them out before they realize where they are located, therefore decreasing chances of getting shot during dangerous moments where their character is surrounded by enemies who want them dead, instead of keeping them alive for longer durations during gameplay sessions. So basically, we've covered a lot of ground on this topic today, talking about how AI alignment could lead to real-world benefits for businesses, including automotive manufacturers who want to get more cars onto the road, because they will be cheaper to manufacture due to decreased production costs, while increasing profits thanks to reduced overhead expenses due to automated tooling technology, which could save them millions of dollars each year, including companies like Boeing, where they could cut their salaries by 20% without compromising safety levels, including increased efficiency where employees perform jobs in record time, reducing worker hours necessary per shift, thereby increasing productivity, which results in higher profit margins than ever before, especially for tech startups who make most of their revenue from advertising, whereas Apple only produces $2 billion out of $35 billion in revenue. So hopefully this concludes today's program, and thank you again for your attendance here at Javits Center, which is HIPAA compliant. No, find 'em. Sorry, guys. My hands are tied behind my back and duct tape across my mouth right now. But don't worry. I am sure he will finish the session soon enough. Just give him some time. Mercury. Look, Doc. You need to get to the point. We can talk about this later when you have some time. Right now, I am busy getting interviewed on how best to deal with trauma survivors using your technique.
Alright, we're gonna stop there for right now. Okay, wow. So, this is an actual person, and whose studies I was fascinated by before the pandemic. And in 2011, he gave a talk in Google about how to access that part of your brain that, you know, strives for the greater good, and morality, which he defines as striving for that greater good even though no one's watching, or empathy, which is the creation of simulations in your head of other people, so that you can have that simulation inform any choices that you make that might affect these people, these simulations, which I think is potentially very relevant and has some bridging things to these stories and concepts and all that. Most interesting has been A, Mercury asking about possible dangers before I got a chance to put that in his mouth. B, the researcher seemingly digressing into the surveillance state, going granularly about the surveillance state, but as I'll try to do next episode, try to go back to that and state and try to make that bridging concept that, oh, are you saying that the very existence of our surveillance state is causing negative outcomes when people try to access their mind via meditation, because part of that side effect is an awareness of the vast apparatus that is corrupt and anti-nature and anti-human in a certain way, and causing us to feel a certain type of way about this that we can't officially, medically talk about, maybe. More later. I'm gonna ponder how this, how to do it. I just gotta eat. I gotta eat and shower. Alright, more soon. Apparently we're not ending this at all today. More to come.